Hello everyone and welcome to Chess5. Today I am going to show you the game between Nepomniachtchi versus Caruana Fabiano. This game is from the FTX Crypto Cup played in 2021, and this game is from the quarterfinals, and quarterfinals was between Caruana Fabiano versus Nepomniachtchi. And all we know is that Nepomniachtchi has been selected for the World Championship match against Magnus Carlsen. So this game is going to be interesting because the last year's World Championship candidate was Caruana Fabiano. So this game is obviously interesting. So this game is from the Blitz section, round number 1, and in Blitz section 2 games should be played. So this is the first game. The second game was gone drawn. So let's see what happened in the first game, because the player who is going to win the first game won the game and qualified into the semi-final. So Nepomniachtchi is having the white pieces, started the game with 1 c4, the English opening, and Caruana replied with e5, g3, knight to f6, bishop to g2, c6, planning to play d5 and take control of the center. So white played knight to f3, ignored the center because now white is attacking the e5 pawn. So now e4, attacking the knight on f3, knight to d4, d5, taking control over the center as well as protecting the pawn on e4 and attacking the pawn on c4. So white played c into d5 and now queen into d5. Here in this position, c into d5 is also a fine move, but Caruana decided to go for queen into d5 because queen on d5 is very misplaced, because white can simply play knight c3 with a tempo and attacking the queen on d5. But for now the queen is attacking the knight on d4, so the knight have to move from the d4 square. So white played knight to c2, bishop to c5, knight to c3, attacking the queen on d5. So queen to e5, castle, and now knight into e4. A nice move by Nepomniachtchi, because after knight into e4 comes d4, and the pawn is protected by the knight and the queen, so bishop or queen is going to fall. And those who was thinking why not white can play d4 directly. So if white played d4 directly, now comes e into d3 en passant, and after e into d3 pawn is weak and nothing is going to happen, and black is slightly better. So knight into e4, and now d4, attacking the bishop and the queen. So here queen to e7, d into c5, knight into c5, and now knight to e3, bishop to e6, b3, planning to play bishop to b2, and the bishop on b2 would be a great bishop on b2 because it is just in the file, the diagonal is just open. So after b3, black played a5, planning to play a4 and creating some weaknesses on the b3 pawn. So white played queen to c2, knight to a6, bishop to b2, f6. The idea behind f6 was, as you can see, the bishop on b2 is going till the g7, and g7 can become weakness in the future by playing queen to c3, and white can target checkmate on g7. So black answered with f6, stopping queen into g7 in the future. So after f6, queen to c3 still, knight to b4, and now rook f to c1, attacking the knight on c5. So black played b6. b6 was a mistake by Caruana. A better move could be to simply play knight to d7. The black pawn structure on the queen side is very fine, but after Caruana played b6, the c6 pawn is now a weakness because the bishop on g2 is just eyeing on the c6 pawn. White can play a3 in the future and put some pressure on the c6 pawn. So b6 was a mistake, and now Ian played knight to c4, creating pressure on the b6 pawn. So Caruana played knight to d7, protecting the b6 pawn. Queen to e3, creating more pressure on the b6 pawn. So black played rook a to b8, a3, kicking the knight from the b4 square. Knight to d5, attacking the queen on e3, and a queen to d2. Knight to c5, queen to c2, bishop to f7, perhaps planning to play bishop to g6 in the future and create some threats on the queen. So white played e4, opening up the position and taking some center. So knight to c7, bishop to d4, knight into b3. The idea behind knight into b3 is, after queen into b3, here Caruana played b5, which was a blunder. The right continuation was black should have played first c5, attacking the bishop on d4. After bishop to e3, now black can play b5, because knight cannot move from the c4 square because the knight is pinned because of the bishop. Here if queen will move, the knight would be captured, and if the knight would move, the queen would be captured. So c5 was right move, but after black played b5, it was a blunder. Feel free to pause the video and try to find the best move for white in this position. Okay, to those who found the right move, congratulations on finding the tactics on 2 move, because the right move is queen to e3, a nice move by Nepo. The idea is, after black will capture the knight on c4, white will play bishop to c5, and now white would be just an exchange plus. So after queen to e3, black played bishop into c4, white plays bishop to c5, attacking the queen as well as the rook. So queen moved, queen to e5, and a bishop into f4, rook into f8, and this is a complete winning position for white. So here white played a4. Here pawn cannot be taken because the bishop is hanging on c4. So black played rook to a8, a into b5, bishop into b5, and now f4, grabbing some space on the king side. Here queen to e7, e5, f into e5, bishop into c6, bishop into c6, rook into c6, queen to d7, rook to c1, e into f4, queen to b3 check, queen to d5, and here white played queen to b6. Queen b6 was a mistake by Nepo because it equalizes the position. The right move for the white in this position was to play simply queen to c4, and here white is planning to take the knight on c7. So the fourth move for black is to play queen into c4, and after queen into c4, white will play rook 1 into c4. After knight to d5, rook to c5, attacking the knight on d5. So black have to play knight to b4, and after g into f4, white is winning the game. So this should have been played by Nepomniachtchi, but instead at the place of playing queen to c4, Ian played queen to b6, which was a mistake, because now here Caruana played knight to e8, here g into f4, knight to f6, queen to c5, asking for a queen trade, and here Caruana played queen into c5, which was a mistake by Caruana, because now it gives the winning position for Nepo. The right move for black in this position was to play simply a4, just going for pawn push, because after queen into d5, knight into d5, rook to c8 check, rook into c8, rook into c8, king to f7, here rook to c5, king to e6, here f5 check. Here king cannot take the pawn because the knight is hanging. So king to e5, here f6, here g into f6, and here rook to a5, and white is basically going to take the pawn on a4, but still it's a draw because white is having a rook and a pawn, and black is having knight versus knight and 2 pawn, which is a drawish game. So this should have been played by the Caruana, but after queen to c5, here Caruana decided to trade the queens by playing queen into c5, which was a mistake, because now here Nepo played rook into c5, a4, rook to c8 check, rook into c8, rook into c8 check, king to f7, king to g2, knight to d5, putting pressure on the f4 pawn. Here king to f3, knight to e7, rook to a8, king to f6, rook to a6 check, king to f5, rook into a4, king to f6, king to e4, g6, rook to a6 check, king to g7, rook to a7, king to f6, h3, king to e6, rook to a6 check, king to f6, here king to e5, bringing the king over the black's area. Here king to f8, rook to a8 check, king to f7, rook to a7, king to f8, here king to e6, and after king to e6, move number 57th, here Caruana Fabiano with the black pieces resigned the game, and Nepomniachtchi with the white pieces won the game. So this was a very complicated game, and it was a very interesting game. This game is from like a candidate versus a candidate, as the Caruana was 2019 candidate who challenged Magnus Carlsen for the world championship match, and in this year 2021 Nepo is going to challenge Magnus Carlsen for the world championship match. So let's see what is going to happen there. And if you like this video, then please subscribe to my channel if you are new, and please like the video, and thank you for watching. Bye bye.